you know what's absolutely insane? We live in a world where deep thinking has become a social crime. In 2025, while everyone chases the next trend, confuses shine with meaning, and trades conversation for noise, the one who sits quietly in the corner, reflecting on life, death, purpose, is labeled as strange. Yes, you heard that right. Have you ever felt that thinking deeply is like carrying an invisible burden? Have you ever heard someone say, with that disguised air of judgment, "You think too much?" and felt that label fall on you as if reflection were a flaw, not a gift? But what if what you always believed was your greatest curse was, in fact, your greatest superpower? What if this restlessness, this uncomfortable clarity, this need to go beyond easy answers, was actually a calling to see what few dare to see, a calling to carry the questions the world prefers to bury, a calling to live more truthfully, even when it hurts. Picture a family gathering, a reunion with friends, a room full of rehearsed smiles, recycled jokes, gossip, social scripts on autopilot. In the corner, there's someone different. It's not that they want to stand out, they're simply awake. Their eyes don't applaud the performance. They see the emptiness behind the good manners. And what do people do? They whisper, they point, they label. There's something wrong with him. She's weird. But here's the secret no one admits. Being awake is dangerous to those still asleep. Most people live on comfortable lies. Everything happens for a reason. Just follow the script and you'll be happy. Don't rock the boat. But when someone starts asking, what if nothing happens for a reason? What if the rules were made to keep us trapped? The house of cards trembles, and the herd reacts with panic. That comes with a price. The invisible cost of being deep in a shallow world. Silence, exclusion, loneliness. A loneliness that isn't the absence of company, but the misalignment between the language of your soul and the shallow conversations around you. Nietzsche said the individual must fight not to be crushed by the tribe, and that battle begins inside. Socrates reminds us that the unexamined life is not worth living, and examining hurts. But what if that pain isn't punishment? What if that invisible wound is, in fact, a portal? Rumi wrote that there's a voice that doesn't use words. Van Gogh painted his anguish in silence. Galileo spoke truths that sounded like heresy. All of them paid a price, and all of them left behind a key. Maybe your wounded clarity isn't a curse, but a sign that you no longer belong to the shadows. Today, let's walk this road together. From existential loneliness to the hidden superpower of thinking too much. From Plato's cave to Rumi's illuminated wounds. From Galileo's trial to Van Gogh's misunderstood brush. From Socrates' radical questioning to Nietzsche's courage to break free from the herd. Maybe, in the end, you'll discover that your wounded clarity is not a curse, but a calling to live with more truth. And what if we started with the quietest and, at the same time, the most challenging place on this journey? Loneliness, not as absence, but as a mirror where the soul sees itself without disguise. Loneliness is, more often than not, the first consequence for those who dare to think deeply. While the world celebrates instant connections, you discover the bitter feeling of being alone even when surrounded by people. It's as if there's an invisible wall separating the language of your soul from the conversations of everyday life. Nietzsche said that the individual must always struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. That struggle begins within, the weight of not fitting in, the anguish of being different. But what looks like isolation can actually be fertile ground for transformation. It's in loneliness that the awakening of consciousness begins. Think of Socrates. Before being condemned, he said that the unexamined life was not worth living. That examination requires courage to dive into inner silence. It's not the silence of punishment, but the fertile silence where answers sprout that the noisy world cannot provide. This battlefield is not just against the outer world. It's also against inner ghosts, the feeling of inadequacy, the doubt that maybe something is wrong with you. But what if the loneliness that hurts today is, in fact, an invitation from your soul? What if emptiness is not absence, but an invisible womb preparing your inner transformation? But loneliness isn't only made of inner silence. It also shows up in the way we communicate. Because, in the midst of so many voices, another dilemma emerges: the difference between empty talk and the language of the soul. We live in a time when words multiply, but listening grows empty. Conversations run like slogans and hashtags, while the language of the soul demands depth, silence, and presence. Van Gogh understood this. In his letters to his brother Theo, he wrote not only about art, but about the pain of existing in a world that didn't understand him. He didn't just speak with paint. He spoke with silence, with color, with intensity. His suffering could not fit into shallow phrases. Rumi offers us a precious key here. There's a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. This is the language that few dare to learn. It's not in quick daily dialogues, but in contemplation, in a silent gesture, in a look that sees beyond the mask. Galileo knew this too. His language was that of observation and science, yet he was accused of heresy because his words didn't align with collective comfort. He showed truths, but people preferred the safety of illusions. The clash between the language of the soul and empty talk creates relational dissonance. It's painful to feel that what pulses inside of you finds no space in the external world. But at the same time, it's within this tension that your authenticity is revealed. Maybe the feeling of not being understood is precisely the sign that you weren't born to repeat pre-made phrases, but to inaugurate a new way of saying the unsayable. This tension between what is said and what is truly felt takes us to an even greater paradox: the experience of living between shadows and light. Here, Plato's ancient allegory of the cave finds its home in our daily lives. Plato's allegory of the cave is not just an old story. It's a mirror of the present. We all start out chained to shadows, inherited beliefs, social narratives, illusions sold as truths. But some dare to rise, leave the cave, and face the light. That movement hurts. The eyes burn, vision blurs. But suddenly, reality appears. And when someone returns to tell those still chained, the response is predictable: mockery, rejection, even violence. Galileo was silenced for showing that the sun didn't revolve around the earth. Socrates was condemned for his unsettling questions. Van Gogh was ignored until his death. Nietzsche was called insane for announcing the death of God and the birth of the Overman. They all dared to leave the cave, and they all paid the price. In daily life, this metaphor translates into something simple. Every time you see a truth others refuse to see, you feel the weight of exclusion. It's as if living awake in a sleeping world is like carrying an invisible wound. But remember, the pain of seeing beyond is also proof that you no longer belong to the shadows. And what if your sense of strangeness is not failure, but a sign that you've already seen the light and now carry within you the task of not falling back asleep? And when you finally see the light, another wound is born, the accusation that you think too much, that you go too far. But what if that excess is actually a hidden power? How many times have you heard, "You think too much"? That phrase carries judgment, as if reflection were a flaw and not a virtue. But what if that excess of thought is, in fact, your greatest gift? Nietzsche said that we need chaos within us to give birth to a dancing star. Overthinking may be exactly that creative chaos. It's what allows you to see patterns, question illusions, unmask convenient truths. It's what sustains deep self-knowledge that goes beyond ready-made formulas. Plato saw philosophy as training for death, not as an end, but as transcendence. Thinking deeply is rehearsing eternity, learning to see the invisible. Rumi helps us understand it differently. Don't be satisfied with stories. Go and live your own. Overthinking can be that impulse not to accept what is handed to you, but to seek an authentic experience of life. And if society calls it too much, it's because it prefers the comfort of easy answers. But remember, everything that is truth today was once seen as madness. Galileo, Van Gogh, Nietzsche, all were accused of going too far. And yet, it was precisely their excessive reflections that opened doors for humanity. What the world calls weakness may, for you, be your greatest superpower, the ability to look beyond, to create the new, to awaken a broader consciousness. And if deep thinking is a gift, it also carries a risk. What do you do with the light you've discovered? Because sharing truths in a world that prefers illusions can be as dangerous as it is liberating. Awakening is not only a blessing, it's also a risk. The light you carry can illuminate, but it can also blind those who are not yet ready. Socrates knew this. His questions were flames. Those who approached with courage could awaken. Those who feared reacted with hatred. His death sentence was the result of a world unable to handle gnosis. Nietzsche also faced this fate. His lucidity was so intense that many could not bear it. He himself succumbed to the weight of his vision, falling into madness in his final years. Van Gogh, with his canvases full of life, was ridiculed, as if his intensity were exaggeration. And Galileo, forced to deny his own discoveries, symbolizes the price paid when light arrives too soon. Rumi offers us a precious clue here. The wound is the place where the light enters you. But what happens when you try to share that light and realize others reject it? The pain is doubled, not only for carrying the flame, but for seeing that few want to warm themselves by it. Here comes discernment. There's no need to impose. Light is not meant to be thrown into the eyes of those who sleep, but offered as a flame to those who ask for warmth. True spiritual awakening requires humility, to share without imposing, to illuminate without hurting, to guide without dragging. And maybe this is the final lesson. Gnosis is not for everyone at the same time. Each soul has its own rhythm. Your role is only to keep the flame alive within yourself, until someone, seeing it, freely chooses to come closer. Thus, between loneliness and lucidity, between silence and words, between shadows and light, we see that all these paths converge into one same question. What is the true price and the true gift of being deep in a superficial world? The invisible price of being deep in a shallow world is high. Loneliness, rejection, misunderstanding. But it's also the seal of authenticity of a soul that refuses to live in shadows. Plato reminds us, leaving the cave hurts, but it's the only way to see the truth. Socrates inspires us. Unsettling questions are seeds of freedom. Galileo teaches us, even science needs spiritual courage. Nietzsche challenges us. Breaking with the herd is the first step to creating new values. Van Gogh moves us. Even misunderstood, the beauty of his soul bloomed on canvas. And Rumi whispers, the wound is the portal to the divine. Maybe your existential loneliness, your relational dissonance, and your wounded clarity are actually signs that you're already walking toward your spiritual truth. And what if the pain weighing on you today is actually the confirmation that you no longer belong to the world's illusions, but to the deep calling of your own soul? Tonight, as the day ends, set aside a moment of inner silence. Place a blank page in front of you and write down only one question. What truth is my loneliness trying to show me? Then, wait. Don't force it. Let the answer emerge like a seed buried in darkness, ready to bloom at the right time. This simple act transforms pain into the language of the soul. If these words touched something within you, Maybe it's time to take one more step on this journey of reconnecting with your inner truth. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep receiving content that nourishes the soul with presence and authenticity. Share in the comments what resonated with your heart. Your story may be the mirror someone else needed to find. And if you want to keep riding this wave, watch the video we left in the card. It was chosen with care to continue this journey with you. In the end, your wound is proof that you have already awakened. And awakening, no matter how painful, is always better than living asleep. Peace and light.